Welcome everyone to Mailfuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Copenhagen Cowboy, Episode 1. It's called Miu the Mysterious, and it is the new Netflix limited series from Nicholas Winding Refn, who I'm a fan of. He obviously, his most successful thing is Drive, as far as a movie goes, but he's made a lot of very stylish movies, including The Neon Demon, Valhalla Rising, and of course did the limited series on Amazon, Tool to Die Young, which we did review back when it came out, every episode of. So this came out of relative nowhere. Just found out about it last month. It took me a week to get to it for various, life reasons, but I'm glad that I finally did, because I thought this first episode was fantastic. Now, it's very taste dependent. Refn is a very, he's an acquired taste, and he's not for everyone. And I think that's very important to mention before going any further. Not everyone is going to love this, but if you like something that's a little bit, hypnotic, a little bit artistic, long shots, colorful lighting, all that stuff, then it may be for you. I suspect anyone checking out a review of this a week late probably already either cares about Refn and just wants to hear my thoughts or whatever, so maybe I don't have to explain too much about who Refn is, but I'm getting out of the way that I like Refn stuff, and that's relevant just for context of like me going into this show. It's a 6-episode limited series, and Miu is the main character. She's this young woman who is sold to Rosella, who is, it's a Danish show for the record as well, so it's all subtitled. So I'm starting spoiler free here. She's sold to Rosella, who is the sister of a sort of pimp slash crime kingpin dude, and she is purchased Miu, who is much like the prostitutes that are a big part of the show, is owned by Rosella, but she's believed to have abilities, and that she brings luck, and Rosella thinks she'll bring luck to her. Specifically, she wants to conceive a child, and Rosella is, to put it bluntly, clearly a bit old to be conceiving a child, but she thinks that she'll be able to because of Miu bringing her luck. So that's the basic setup of the first episode, and we're also introduced to the brother character of Rosella, who's this crime boss who has a sort of brothel, and a lot of his girls, I think maybe all of them, stay in the basement of Rosella's house. So Miu gets to interact with them over the course of the episode. So much like Tool to Die Young, one of the key themes of this is definitely going to be the idea that there's these powerful, awful men in this world, and these are women who are victims, who are forced into this life. I'll make it very clear here. I won't get into spoilers yet, but I will say it's made clear in this episode that these women did not choose this life. They did not choose to become prostitutes. They have been forced into this via threats and coercion and things like that. They are prisoners, and this idea that our main character Miu could be this like rogue element who is very quiet, she's very timid, she doesn't say a whole lot, but then maybe the story of this, I suspect after one episode, is that she is going to make some kind of difference, and ultimately the women are going to prevail and get away from these awful people. Not that it's all just men. Rosella, the criminal sister here that has purchased Miu, is a horrendous, awful, vile human being. So it's not just the men who are awful, but it's mostly men. So this was stylish as shit. There's a lot of beautiful shots. The last 5 minutes of this episode are just downright hypnotic. There's a fantastic piece of music, which I've already been listening to on YouTube Music a lot since I watched this episode earlier. That is just phenomenal. I watched the last 5 minutes again just because I liked them so much. I thought it bookended the episode really good. It really set up, I really hated the villains. I really was rooting for the main characters by the end. This is, as long as you like Refn's style, I think this was an excellent first part of a 6-part story, because by the end of it, I was so invested in these villains being defeated and being taken down, and I really wanted to root for. And it's not even Miu specifically; it's another character. I don't think they ever really say a lot of these characters' names in the show. I think, just looking at IMDb, I think it's Simona. who is the main prostitute that we get to know in this episode, that Mius kind of befriends, and we get some, and there's a lot of wonderful little style. There's obviously a lot of like referencing. You're talking about style, you're talking about the camera work, you're talking about the aesthetic of it, but there's a lot of really smart little touches in the filmmaking. So one of the things that I really liked is that we're introduced to the brothel early on, and the prostitutes are sort of like put out on show for like a client, a consumer, or whatever, a John, whatever you want to call him, and they're sort of like lined up, and we're introduced to Simona with the character. We get the classic sort of sexy reveal shot, right, which is the camera going up the legs to reveal her. It's pretty typical stuff. You know, it's in the moment. But what's so smart about it is that the next time we see her, when Miu finally like first meets her, it's in Rosella's house, and we get the exact same shot, you know, going up the legs to reveal her face. But this time, she's not wearing lingerie, she's not wearing anything like that. She's wearing pajama bottoms, and she's holding a towel and a toothbrush because she's, you know, wanting to go shower, and it's just, you know, it's the morning. You know, it's just the most unsexy kind of like time of day, like type of outfit that you could be wearing. It's the polar opposite. But the direction, the camera work, it's just a subtle thing to let you know it's the same person that we just met in this other very different scenario. And this is the other side of who this person is. And we were introduced to her as this, you know, product that was put out on display, but now we're getting to meet the real person. And this scene of meeting her as a real person is her having to pay for the right to use the shower upstairs, because Rosella is that awful that when the water's not working downstairs, she'll make them pay and extort money out of them. And there's a lot of awkward silence, and she has to, like, you know, give it over. And it's like, okay, you got the hollow sexy representation, but here's the real person, and the real hardships. One of the real hardships is, as small as it might be relative to her overall predicament, that you get, okay, this is her. So it's really smart at like sort of being stylistic, setting up the world that we're in, and kind of giving you these little hints of like the characters who are the victims in the show, and the characters who are the villains in the show, the ones who are holding them down. And one of the things that the show does as well is that there's a couple of characters that I won't get into specifics of who they are right now, but they don't speak. They instead have pig sound effects. They oink and make general pig noises. It's not a lot of the episode. It's the first time it happened, I actually thought it was like I just misheard something, and then it kept I was like, oh wait, he's actually got pig sound effects. In fact, the first shot of the episode, it opens on some pigs before we get into the story. And I think this is really smart. Effectively, and you're going to think I'm crazy for saying it's really smart, but the reason why it's really smart is that by the end of the episode, I think I got kind of what, at least after one episode, what I think it's getting at is that the crime boss guy, who I think is Nicholas, just going from the names on IMDb, I think that the people who work for him, whether it's his henchmen or the prostitutes, he sees them as livestock. And the show opens on a shot of like pigs in a farm, you know, it's just livestock. And I think the idea is that these like henchmen or people who are just subservient to him that only oink are just that. Like, they've given in, and this is what they are, and there's no hope for them. And the idea that the prostitutes, who, well, they aren't all like happy, nice people when we meet them, you know, they're quite against Miu, they're kind of mean to her. They're all speaking normally because there's still hope for them, and there's still this chance that they can not be livestock, that they can get away from their captor and go on. I think that's like part of the hope of the show, and that the people who are oinking are just so like under his thumb and dedicated to him that they'll never be anything else, and that's why they oink. They're just pigs. They're just his pigs. So I thought that was really interesting. It was one of those things where I heard it and went, what the hell's going on? And then by the end of the episode, I thought about it and went, I think I get it. I think I get what it's very stylistic, obviously, to just have that, and it's like a little weird, like sort of like what the hell touch, but I actually kind of get it. It makes sense to me. So yeah, very good. And you're kind of waiting, like, you know, the whole time in the first like half of the episode, Rosella keeps saying, "Oh, it's time for you to bring luck. You know, go help the flowers, help me conceive." Blah 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 blah. And the whole time you're like, the second she doesn't get results that she wants, like you're worried for Miu, like what will happen to her. Like, what happens to her when you decide you're upset with the results that she's not brought luck because you're superstitious? Although, one of the most interesting things about the episode from a character point of view for Miu is that when a character asks her, somewhere in the middle of the episode, I think it's one of the prostitutes, they ask her, like, is it true that you bring luck? Miu, very matter-of-factly, just says yes. As if she actually does. This is something she knows that she does. And it's not just like a superstitious thing that has been, told or spread, that she's spread or other people have spread on her behalf. The way she matter-of-factly just says yes made it way more interesting, because up until that point I was like, oh, it's just this crazy superstitious woman who thinks she can do this. But no, she seems to think that on some level she does bring luck. But of course, I don't think she's bringing luck to Rosella in this show. I think that ultimately she's going to save the prostitutes. I think that's where the luck is in the episode. So I really liked it. I really liked the first episode of Copenhagen Cowboy. I'm going to just say, spoiler warning for episode 1. I don't think this is too spoilery. Well, no, that's not true. I want to talk about the ending of the episode, and I think that's important. So spoilers for episode 1. But we see that Rosella's husband, who's the first character we meet who just oinks and doesn't say anything, he has sex with, I think it's Simona, sort of against her will, down in the basement, right? He goes down and Miu kind of witnesses it, and she's resisting. No, doesn't really fight. She just tries to pull away, but it just kind of gives in. It's kind of, it's kind of sad, and this like idea that she obviously doesn't want to, but she also doesn't see the point in fighting anymore, and that's like, it's really depressing to watch. But later on, he gets beat up from Rosella's brother because he's not supposed to do this, and he squeals like a pig as he's being kicked. After this, Simona kind of befriends Miu because Miu has a phone and lets her try and call her mother, and we find out that the prostitutes are invited here for like a modelling audition, but then their passports are taken away and they're told that their families will be killed if they try and run away, and that they have to do this and work for Nicholas. So we get the kind of the real sort of like insidious like backstory of this place and how these awful people operate and how they're capturing all these people. And ultimately, after she's really like, after Miu is basically like found out, like, or at least after Rosella thinks Miu is not helping anything, basically she gets her period after the conception, which is really awkward. Miu has to sit in the room while they're having sex. It's this absurd, like, uncomfortable moment. But after she gets her period, she's then mad at Miu and sends her downstairs with the other girls, and the implication being that she's just going to be a prostitute now because she failed to bring luck in the conception of a baby that was never going to happen. And this is kind of like a depressing part of the episode, and Simona makes a pact with Miu. She's like, I've heard of this woman who helps people in situations like ours get away, like gets them papers and ID to escape. Let's run away together. I'll run away from the club tonight and you can meet me at this location. And that's the plan. They're going to do that. And this is building up to the end of the episode where we get this very wonderful hypnotic sequence of Simona in the club, backstage waiting, for a customer, and deciding to get up and leaving. But all this plays out in slow motion. It's bathed in red lighting. She's running down the street. This great music's playing as we also see Miu leaving the house. And it's all very hopeful. All of it feels very hopeful, which obviously it's episode 1. We've got a whole story to tell. There's no way that we're getting a happy ending here, right? It just wouldn't make sense. And sure enough, there's a moment before she starts running where you see her sort of sitting with her legs crossed, Simona, where I noticed the high heels she was wearing. And the reason why I noticed them is because the opening of the episode with the pigs, well, the other thing that it shows is that at this pig farm is that we see like someone being strangled, but we only see it from the feet. We see like, some man's feet, and we see a woman's set of feet in these heels, and I realized in this moment, oh shit, she's going to die. That's who was being strangled at the start of the. That's what the bookend of the episode's going to be ultimately, is that she was the one who was being killed in the opening scene. And sure enough, as she's running away, this car pulls up, and this shot is great. There's a moment here where she opens the car door and she just holds her pose for a second. So you get her bathed in the red light coming from like the brake lights of the car, but you see like the dark green of the foliage in front of the car, and she's sort of like almost in like this red silhouette of like her pose before she gets in the car. And then we see her being killed by this, evil looking like gaunt face like villain who probably works for Nicholas. You imagine he does. Maybe I'll find out otherwise in episode 2, but I would assume he does. And after he kills her, he looks down and he opens his mouth and screams, but he screams with the roar of a pig, the roar of a hog kind of thing. And it's demonic, it feels scary, it's got that kind of, Refn, I suppose, in places can be compared a little bit to David Lynch, and I think this is probably the most David Lynch thing about the whole episode, is that this roar from this guy after he kills Simona feels something I would see in a Twin Peaks episode. It feels like, oh, we're seeing the evil, like, or something. Not that I think there's like going to be supernatural evil elements to this. I mean, if Miu actually does have real luck powers, then maybe we will get something like that. But I don't think so. I think it's just, it's to sell the threat and the evil of this. And this is someone who's devout. And this is why I think that he definitely works for the main bad guy, because, again, going with my idea, my interpretation of the pig noises, that's what I'm going with here. And the final shot is Miu standing there on her own, and Simona's never going to show up. And it ends in sort of like this moment of silence, and it's really bitter, not even bittersweet, it's just bitter. Like, there's nothing happy about it. Obviously, all the hope I felt that Miu will be this force of change, this catalyst for change in this like seedy, awful part of the world. And I don't mean the country, I just mean like, the immediate surrounding of like this family and how awful they are and their business and all that. I'm rooting for change here. And there's the other main prostitute we get here from who's really mean to Miu. I'm going to assume that part of the story is that she's going to like warm to her, and that's going to be like part that lets us know that Miu's getting through and changing things, is that her cynicism melts away perhaps, and she won't be as awful to her as the show goes on. But regardless, like, I thought this was a captivating, like, hypnotic at times, just, the hour flew in. It's a full hour long and it just flew in. Like, I was just mesmerized by it, which is as best a praise as I can give it as I possibly can. But it wasn't just visual treats. Like, I've sat here and I've talked about my interpretation of some artistic touches. I think the direction is exceptional in not only just visually looking cool, but also creating feelings and, things like making it clear in the introduction of the character of Simona and connecting it to the previous scene where we saw her in like a very different situation, and comparing her real life and who she really is versus the glamour of like the sexy prostitute on show, or just something as simple as like how hopeful the back chunk of the episode feels, only to have it pulled away from you at the last second. And that was excellent. And I'm genuinely not sure how I'm going to cover the rest of this, if I'm just going to watch the rest of it and just do a season review. I think that's more likely, just because it's taken a week to start it, and I don't know if doing episode by episode is necessarily something that is it is going to be like clicked on by that many people. Maybe just a season review after I'm done is probably a better choice at this point. But I thought this was excellent. And if you're a fan of Refn, I think you'll be in for a treat. So I loved it. Best new show of 2023 so far, which isn't saying much because it's like, we're on the second week of January, but it's definitely the first one that I like this year, and I'm excited to watch the rest. So very good stuff. I liked it a bunch, and yeah, so that's Copenhagen Cowboy. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fudge for channel updates. But otherwise, that is me. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?